Listen, are you looking for practical, sustainable, and proven ways to build wealth so you and your family can live the lifestyles you were created to live? Of the one that's filled with freedom and lifestyle options. Are you tired of trying to figure it out all by yourself? And does nobody in your family understand your drive? Then it sounds like you need a new tribe. Well, you're in luck because we just created one here at the Share the Wealth Show called the Wealth Exchange Network, where you can come in, engage, get support, and ask questions with people who have practical knowledge and experience to help you level up and get to that next stage in your journey. So hop on in, click the link in the show notes to join today. Come on and take advantage of this opportunity, and I'm going to see you on the
So
inside.
I invest in single family and multifamily. My multifamily obviously are a longer term strategy. My short term strategy that I realized I needed and that I realized is actually performing pretty well are my duplexes. You get the cash flow instantly, just every month. As long as your tenants are paying, you're getting paid out. Whereas in the multifamily structure, as you know, unless you're the asset manager of that or else have the acquisition fee when you first acquire it, you're not really seeing your big payoff until you refinance or sell the property. So that could be 3, 4, 5 years down the road where you get these big chunks of money, which is great. It's like, oh, I doubled my money. But it's like, what do I do every month so that I can eat? If something were to happen with the job, if something were to happen medically or whatever that is, what money is carrying me and sustaining me month to month? And for me, that is my duplexes.
Welcome to the Share the Wealth Show, where minority professionals can learn to escape the racial wealth gap and catapult themselves into abundance. Your host, Nicole Pendergrass, grew her net worth from being negative to multiple six figures. Join her on her investigative mission to expose secret strategies of the wealthy so we can all have the tools needed to build the life and legacy we were created to possess. Now it's time for the show.
All right, welcome back for another episode of the Share the Wealth Show. This is the show where we discuss strategies on how to build and protect minority wealth. And today I have with me a dear friend, Tiffany Ward, and she has so much experience. We were actually talking just about personal stuff. Of course, it veered off into real estate as we're discussing. I'm like, why are we talking about this now? We need to be recording. So he's like, okay, let's turn the cameras on to get this conversation continued from our off-screen pre-convo.
Right.
Tiffany, hey, thanks for coming on. Thanks. I'm glad that we could finally organize this.
I know. I'm so excited to be here. Finally got on the podcast. It's an awesome show. I listen to it all the time, and I'm happy to be here. So thank you for having me.
Yay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So actually, I just want to go back to what we were talking about before. We were kind of discussing the troubles with real estate and cash flow, right? That might hurt both of us in our prospective endeavors with real estate, but it is always on a case-by-case basis. And this is all about transparency, right? I love being transparent. I don't like keeping the curtain closed. I like to pull that back so people can really see what's happening in the industry right now. But we were both talking about our issues with cash flow or things that are happening with our buildings. I think one thing you did mention, and we didn't dig into, you said your duplexes are your best performing assets right now, right?
My duplexes are my best performing assets. So I invest in single family and multifamily. My multifamilies obviously are a longer term strategy. So as a W-2 professional, I have no plans of leaving my job. I was always kind of future focused. So it's like, okay, what can I do to make sure that I retire in my 60s or 70s or whenever that is? And that was always my multifamily strategy, long term. My short-term strategy that I realized I needed and that I realized is actually performing pretty well are my duplexes. So one of my duplexes is operating as an Airbnb currently. And then I have 2 more that are traditional long-term rentals, and they kick off the best cash flow month over month. I like the economies of scale, which is why we like multifamily, right? If one person leaves, there are multiple people paying the mortgage for you. But the duplexes, you get the cash flow instantly, just every month. As long as your tenants are paying, you're getting paid out. Whereas in the multifamily structure, as you know, unless you're the asset manager of that or outside of the acquisition fee when you first acquire it, you're not really seeing your big payoff until you refinance or sell the property. So that could be 3, 4, 5 years down the road where you get these big chunks of money, which is great. Like, oh, I doubled my money. But it's like, what do I do every month so that I can eat? If something were to happen with the job, if something were to happen medically or whatever that is, what money is carrying me and sustaining me month to month? And for me, that is my duplexes.
Okay. And then I also want to clarify that the structure you're talking about, it sounded more like syndication.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So that's it. When you're syndicating a multifamily deal, you can also, just like Tiffany buys duplexes, you can buy triplexes, quads, even a 10 unit or whatever as a joint venture or on your own, depending on the capital resources and stuff that you have. You don't have to syndicate every deal, but for some of the larger deals, because you need to pool capital and resources from other investors as well, you would syndicate those. And in those situations, you definitely don't get as much cash flow up front as you expect, or as a lot of people expect who are not in the industry.
100%.
How
100%.
how much did so you have 3 duplexes. How much did they cost? When did you buy them?
Ooh, I bought one of them in 2018. That's the one that's currently operating as a short-term rental, Airbnb. I bought that one for $150. It was in a up-and-coming gentrifying neighborhood. I lived in a house hack, so I lived in one unit and rented out the bottom. It came with a tenant in place. She was a very good tenant, paid her bills on time, very nice. I think now it's probably doubled. I don't know if I should be saying all this, but should probably double in value right now. So I have a good amount of equity there in that property. The other 2 I purchased within the last year. All of these deals were on the MLS. No, 2 of the deals were on the MLS. One of them was through a wholesaler. And the other 2, they're about, I don't know, I purchased them for maybe 180, 80, added value to them, you know, kind of the BRRRR strategy. So refinance, rent, repeat. Those were a little bit closer to market value. So I was really investing in those for the cash flow. Because I do work the W-2 again, I have more money to play around with and kind of leave into deals. And my goal was just to continuously buy properties. So those have working out well for me so far.
And where are those located? Are they close to where you live and you reside?
Right. Those are here in Virginia. So all of my single families are here in Virginia. My single family, what I qualified as, is 1 to 4 units. So they're all here in Virginia where I'm based. And then all of my multifamily investments, whether those were active as a GP or a JV or passive as an LP syndication model, those are all out of state.
Okay. All right. So 2 things with your acquisitions of the duplexes.
Mhm.
So one you lived in, so that was, you know, probably FHA or conventional, like a lower 3.5 to 5% down kind of
Correct.
thing. You lived in one, blah, blah, blah. And then the other 2 that you bought over the past year or so, that's very interesting because this past year, we just had an interest rate cut of half a 0.5 basis point, right? But before that, like, this is the highest interest rate environment that we've had in decades. I don't know if I should put S on that, but at least a decade, right? So how is your cash flow? What's your financing? Like, where are you finding capital from? How much is your rates? Like, there's people out there saying, oh, I'm going to sit on the sidelines. I've had conversations with people say, I'm sitting on the sidelines, I'm waiting and watching what's happening with interest rates and the market and all that stuff. But like, there's people out here like you who are actively buying in this interest rate environment and still cash flowing. Right. So I want to dispel what that
100%.
looks like. Yeah. For you. And how did that come about with the financing model? And what your cash flow is from those deals. Hey, I just want to break this up real quick to give a huge thank you to one of our listeners who left an amazing review. This is from Sand MP, who said, a life-changing podcast. I just wanted to say thank you. This podcast has been a wealth of knowledge from how to increase income without trading more of your time to how to preserve wealth you have created for years to come. This podcast is life-changing if you apply what you hear. You are awesome. No, you are awesome, Sand MP. And I want to encourage anyone out there listening, please leave us a rating and review, especially on Apple. This helps us get to more listeners and reach more people who are looking for the information being shared here on the podcast today. So in any case, leave us a rating review and maybe your review will be read next. Now back to the show.
So some of it is having some capital up front. So I'll dig in a little bit more to the recent purchases. One of them, again, was on the market. So I came to the table with 15% down. I did get into like a DSCR-like product, debt service coverage product, where the rental rates and the rental income had to exceed the mortgage by like 1.2, 1.25, right? That interest rate is at about a 8.375, 8.4, something like that. But again, because it's a duplex, I have the 2 rental incomes versus just the 1. So if each of my units there are, when I purchased it, they were under $1,000 a door. And the market rates, let's say they were paying $900, the market rate is $1,400. So 1,400 times 2, 2,800. Well, my mortgage is like $1,700. So that's that's $1,000 of cash flow, right? Once you add value, once I went in, painted, updated the cabinets, whatever that was, right? I'm cash flowing $1,000 a month, which to me is great cash flow for 2 doors. If you were to go out in today's market, go out buy one property, most people are only cash flowing $200 or $300 a door for most of their properties. On a good day, $400 or $500. Back in the old days when the market was different. My other one that I purchased, that was the one that I purchased from a wholesaler. And again, I got that one for maybe $80,000. I put about $30,000 worth of work into it. New floors, new bathrooms, paint, cabinets, the same things. And again, those are cash flowing $1,000 per unit. So my mortgage is like $1,000, $1,100. And I'm cash flowing again, like $900 to $1,000 a month. So to me, the model just works. And I think it works a little bit better when you have more doors to spread your income across, right? The more people who are occupying that space, which is why we like multifamily, right? The more people who are occupying that building, the easier it is to cash flow theoretically. Now, obviously, the bigger you get, the more expenses you have. But in a small duplex, triplex, quad, it's pretty easy to keep your expenses lower and, separately meter all the units and just make it cash flow a little bit easier.
Okay.
And that interest rate as well is like an 8.375, 8.4. And these are 30-year fixed rates. I do have a prepayment penalty of 3 years. So even though the rates are dropping, I will not refinance right now. I'm going to wait the 3 years so that I don't have to pay the bank any more money. I'm still cash flowing, and we'll see. We'll revisit in 3 years if the rates are still down, or maybe they're even down further.
Oh, that would be great. So the second one is also, you put 15% down on that one too?
No, so that one, because it was a BRRRR, I think I left like 10K into it. So because I got it low from a wholesaler and I added value, once I did all the numbers, of course, most flippers, renovators, BRRRR people, they want to get into it with as little money left in as possible. So ideally, they want $0 in. That's a perfect BRRRR. The perfect BRRRR might even be you getting money back. But for me, because I hadn't done a whole lot of renovations, of course, my numbers were off, right? I'm like, oh crap, I got to do more. The floors are in worse shape than I thought. So I ended up leaving about $10,000 into it. And I think the property appraised for $160,000. So $10,000 at the end of the day, the cash flow, $1,000 a month, I make my money back in a year's time, and everything is freshly renovated. So ideally, I won't have any CapEx costs unless something crazy happens, right? But I shouldn't have any CapEx in the next few years.
Okay. So first, what's CapEx? And then 2, I'm gonna ask you another.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I'm
acquisition
trying to
strategy.
explain it as I go. So CapEx is just a capital expenditure. Those are your big expenditures, your roof, your HVAC, the gutter, not the gutters, the plumbing goes bad, like those big, heavy expenses that are $5,000, $10,000 that you have to come up with. There's everyday maintenance and like turnover costs when you change from one tenant to another, or maybe need a touch-up paint, or they broke a knob or something. And then those are your big capital expenditures, your big costs.
Okay. All right. And so with I know you said you left probably about 10K is left in the deal. So that's assuming like once you purchased, once you rehabbed and got the value up and you refinanced, you probably only you pulled out everything except for about 10K.
Correct.
But on the front end of before you finish the whole value add strategy, what was the loan or the capital input that you had to put to get this, and that 30K of like work that you needed to do, was that out of your pocket or did that get financed as well?
Looking to build wealth with real estate? Are you all tapped out on YouTube University and ready to get help tailored to your specific situation and goals? Have you always known that you are a little different from the crowd, that you never liked following the status quo, and that you're just tired of living in mediocrity? You want to build wealth on your own terms outside of Wall Street? Well, then maybe the Microfamily Mavericks mentorship program can help with that. It's a community where I handhold you through the process of buying your first small commercial multifamily building, because not everyone is ready for 100 units out the gate. Why multifamily? Because it gives your rental income a hedge against vacancy. Imagine what happens when your single family rental tenant leaves, right? And why commercial 5+ units? Because you have much more control over increasing the building's value in the commercial space, and then in turn, increasing your own net worth. Starting small is a stepping stone to so much more, because then you can tap that equity and buy another building and another and another, and you get the point. So increasing your cash flow and your ability to be job optional along the way. It's all a part of the journey. So if you think big, but you want to start small, and if you know multifamily real estate is the way for you to open the door to building a life of freedom, abundance, and legacy, but you just need someone to guide you step by step, and you want to be surrounded by other people on the same journey, doing the same thing, then just click the link in the show notes to find out a little bit more about the Microfamily Mavericks, and I look forward to potentially seeing you on the inside. So now back to the show.
So for the one duplex that I bought in Suffolk, Virginia, I'll try to separate it by locations. That one was money out of my pocket. So I just had money. I think I got some nice bonuses from work, honestly, and I was like, I need to deploy this money for taxes, and like, taxes is a whole other thing. So that money did come out of my pocket. I didn't get any other investors or anything like that. The one that I bought from the wholesaler, I want to say I came to the table with closing costs, so maybe $10,000. Most hard money lenders, which is who I use, a hard money lender, they will pay for up to 70% of the after repair value, the ARV. So, you submit your proposal, you say, hey, 123 Main Street, I'm going to buy it for this price. After I fix it up, it'd be worth this price, and these are the repairs that I need. Typically, they want you to have some skin in the game, which is some of your money into the deal. They want you to pay for closing costs and the cost to record the title and the deed of trust, and all these things that you have to do to get the deal done. And so I think I came to the table with about $10,000. So obviously you have to have 10,000 to play, but once you do more deals and you build rapport with some of these hard money lenders, they'll get more familiar with you, and they might let you come in with less skin in the game. So it just depends. So there are private money lenders, which might be your mom, your dad, your cousin, your coworker. They may or may not know intricately what's going on in the real estate market, but they want to invest. They kind of want to be involved. They want to make their money work a little bit better than they might get in the stock market or obviously in their bank account. So those might be private money lenders, and they will typically charge you a little bit less interest rate. And then hard money lenders are going to be a little bit higher interest rate, but they do heavy volume of these. You can consistently count on them to have the funds when you need it. And it's almost like their profession, where they're in business to lend out money.
Yeah. Okay. Super cool. Now, one of them you said you are doing short-term rental with, and I know from your social media posts that you are self-managing these short-term rentals.
Oh, short-term rentals.
So
Yes.
let's dive into that. Why did you decide on short-term rental if the other two are cash flowing very well? Did you just want to bump that up and try it out? Or like, what was the main impetus for you to start with the short-term rental? And then like, how has that been versus your expectation of what it would have been like?
Oof, okay, short-term rentals. So the duplex that I'm doing as a short-term rental was the property that I purchased in 2018. So again, that one I had 5% down, lived in it, rented it out. The timing was kind of perfect because both of my tenants left at the same time. And at that time, I had joined a local mastermind and I had a lot of people around me who were starting up these Airbnbs. So almost like FOMO, I didn't want to miss out, and shiny light syndrome. I was like, well, both of them are vacant. I need a heavy turn anyway. Like I needed to do some renovations to both of them because the one tenant was in there like 7 or 8 years. So I just like, let me try it. Like, let me try this out. I had a lot of friends who helped me. They helped me pick out the designs and the colors and just everything because I am not artistically savvy. So I was like, y'all need to tell me what to do in here. Paint this and do a fence and do this. So I knew that I would get the money back one way or another because that property cash flows so well and as a long-term rental. And the projection was 3 to 5x a long-term rental. So when I looked it up in it might have been AirDNA at the time. I think some of the tools have changed. When I looked it up, traditionally I could cash flow maybe $1,000 a month, $800 to $1,000 a month between the two units. As an Airbnb, I was projected to cash flow $3,000 to $5,000 a month, depending on the seasons, right? There's a seasonality factor to your short-term rentals. So I said, well, I did some calculations. I was like, okay, if this works out well, I should make my money back because I did put quite a bit of money into it. I think I put $30,000 into renovating my property, which I just figured long-term, it would help my property appreciate and improve the value. And if ever I rented it out long-term again, it's already upgraded, right? I already have nicer finishes and fixtures. So I furnished it and I said, well, I should make my money back in I don't know, a year and a half, and then it'll be to the races there. And there were some tax benefits. Taxes are woven into my strategy as a high income W-2 professional. But so I was like, okay, I can get some tax advantages. I can get higher cash flow. And it just seems cool. Like it's the cool thing to do. So I tried it out. It has been a journey. It's been a journey. I am actually, nobody knows this, so y'all will be the first to know, but I'm shutting it down. Why? Because I am too busy. I'm too busy to manage it. And the things like cash flow, like if you're following short-term rentals, there are certain features and I guess they want you to be close to certain things. So mine still is in this gentrifying neighborhood. So in most gentrifying neighborhoods, you're going to see, in my neighborhood, a $500,000 house, a vacant house, a moderately fixed up house, a $500,000 house, a vacant lot, Section 8 tenants, right? Section 8, like it's kind of rough sometimes. So I think the location was a challenge for me. Also, I travel for work. So my W-2 job requires me to travel east to west coast. And it just depends. I could be gone for a week. I can be gone for a day. So getting calls to say that something's wrong, getting calls to say that the cleaner didn't clean, they're locked out, the remote isn't working. Like, I was like,
When you're across the country
when
or
I'm
in
in
the
like
airport,
California and I'm like, the battery, like, I don't know.
the battery? Did you
Is
check
the
the battery?
Like, let me, what is that app that will like deliver people stuff? Like, let me figure out how to get you some
Oh, like
battery,
Fiverr or something. Get somebody to bring some bad. That's crazy.
But I was just like, I was finished. And my biggest stressor was my cleaners. I went through 7 or 8 cleaners and all the cleaners do well in the beginning. So it'll be shiny, sparkling, fresh. You'll be like, oh my gosh, you did a really great job. And then they will forget to take the clothes out of the dryer. And I'm like, okay, no big deal. And then you'll notice the toilet wasn't wiped down. Like there's clearly stains. You didn't wipe the toilet. And it was just like, it would increase constantly where I was over visiting my Airbnb almost every time the tenants or the guests return. And so for me, it just wasn't worth it. And I'm finally stepping out of it.
Okay. So what does that look like for your, I guess, well, you said cash flow is going to be about the same cash flow as your other duplexes. So it won't be bad. It'll be less stress than having to deal with, all the
Yes.
craziness of short-term rentals. But what was it? Did it actually hit your projections during that time that you've been short-term rentaling it?
The first year it hit my projections. The first year I was making great money, hand over fist, and then it slowly started to decline. So we've seen in the Richmond market, some people still do very well, and they have great location and great proximity to some of the frequented areas of Richmond. And then some people have seen a major shift. They've also changed the laws here. So really, I've been operating illegally under the radar, kind of, because they changed it that they really didn't want people to do short-term rentals and Airbnbs anymore. So if you were a multifamily property, which I think I would classify as, I could apply for a waiver. But most people have single family homes. They're just operating, kind of waiting to see what happens, if the city can finally come after them. But it did for the first year hit my projections. I was cash flowing very well, but I was just over there way too much. That property does have a sub-3 interest rate because when everything was happening, I was still living there. And so I was able to secure like a 2.9, I don't know, whatever it is, interest rate for 30 years. So I'm never going to sell that proproperty. And that's why also I can cash flow.
I gotta talk to you off when we turn the camera off. I gotta talk to you. You gonna get rid of that thing?
So yeah, that one also will cash flow maybe a little bit better, maybe like $1,200 a month.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't sell that. That's a lot of people's thought process now. And that's why the market is kind of tight to find something, because especially in the smaller residential single family duplex where owner actually lives there, even an investor, right, who lives there, they don't want to sell the property because they secured such a low interest rate, and like we're never going to see that again. So even with the increases or the decreases in interest rate that the Fed is starting to do, even in a year, if they steadily decrease, I don't think we're ever going to get back to like 3% interest rate again or sub that. So we'll see how it works out. But I think a lot of people are going to be waiting for that and just waiting too long and never see it. So that's your warning. If you're listening, don't wait for 3% interest rate. That's not happening no more.
Well, no, I think they're also saying that historically we're still at all-time lows. Historically, if you look at the last, I don't know, 75 years, 50 years, we're still very low. So I would say, I would agree with you. Go out, start now, don't wait.
Yeah. I've seen some of those charts, and I feel like even, was it like the 80s when they were like 18, 19, 20%, or I think at some point they were even higher than that. I was like, okay, we've definitely been spoiled over these last set of years, like decade or whatever. We've been super spoiled with low interest rates. And anyone who's grown up in this time frame just doesn't realize like how much the economy was kind of manipulated, and we were hand given, this cheap money that people are now expecting for the future, which is not really going to happen. But anyway, I saw a post that you did before about money.
Okay.
Let's talk about money. And it was very interesting, but it was just about segmenting the kind of money you have and like what you want to do with different buckets of money. Like if you want to put it in a high yield interest savings account, if you don't need it and you can just want to have it have a 2x or 3x multiple in 5 to 8 years, or I think if you want to just like get like 10% interest per year. It's not like you had broke down all these different buckets because you have your capital separated into different buckets like that. So I want to kind of pivot to that conversation because I think that that's a great way for people to think and like expand their mindset into the capital that they have, the different buckets of money that they have, what needs to be like easily accessible, what are you holding in your savings account that you don't really touch, but you wanted to do something, and kind of like how to differentiate or diversify the risk and the reward of interest or of not really interest. Yeah, well, I guess you could say the interest that you're earning, but like the income, and the return that you're earning on that capital versus the risk. So do you remember that post that you
I do
made?
remember, and I try to post content that I think will help the people that are connected with me. So obviously I've got people K through 12, college, and corporate followers or friends, right? And obviously we're all at different places on our financial journey, our wealth journeys. And so I try to post things that will resonate with different people at different times in their journey. For me, I've always been a saver. So I learned very early how to save, how to give money to my church, which is like, giving to a charity of your choice, if you will. I learned the importance of a 401k. So in corporate world, there are these saving vehicles, which most of us know about, a 401k, or if you're a teacher, it might be called something else. So at a very young age, I guess when I first started working, I automatically started to do the company match. So I would just set it up in Fidelity or whoever operates your company information, your company accounts, and I would put money away to get the company match, which is might be 3% or 6%. So I would do that, and I started at an early age. And then I also would put away money, $100 a month. So when you're just starting out working, if you're younger, if you're changing jobs or whatever that might be, look at your budget, write your expenses, everything you have to pay every month, and your income. And so for me at the time, when I was like 21, 22, I said, okay, $50, $100, I'm just going to auto direct deposit it from my bank, from my company employer, how they pay you, into a different account that I never even touched. So I just did that for years. And once you do it, you don't miss the money. So everybody who's scared to start, just like start with $50. Put it in a different account that you never see, never touch. And that way you can grow your savings, your rainy day fund, pretty easily without any other intervention. The way that I like to grow my money, though, is in different buckets, which is what you're talking about. So I personally invest in multifamily, which is what we talked about. Passively, I invest passively in some deals where I will give someone like you, Nicole, 50K, 100K, whatever you got. I say, here's my money. Do a good job adding value to this property and deliver me some returns. So there was one property where I actually wasn't passive, but it was a joint venture. So we partnered together that I just sold in July. So that was a 10 unit. That was my very first deal. And we were able to achieve a 2.3x equity multiple. So what that means is if I put in 50K, I got out 115 or whatever 2.3 is, if you did the math. So to me, and that was across 5 years. To me, that's pretty good to double your money in 5 years. So I do that consistently when I have the large sums of money to put passively into these deals as a limited partner into multifamily deals. You can also park those in storage units. There's oil and gas, there's RV parks, there's all these different ways that you can do something similar to that. And that's that syndication strategy that we were talking about a little bit earlier. The other way that I like to move my money is I like to lend it. So typically I have cash either sitting in a bank, or the way I like to do it is in a self-directed account. So most of us are familiar with an IRA, but there are these self-directed IRAs that have a different fiduciary. It's like a different type of bank that will hold your money. And that allows you to diversify away from stocks. So in these self-directed IRA accounts, you can invest in crypto, you can invest in real estate, which is what I like. There's all these gold, there's all these different asset classes that are outside of your traditional stock market. And so what I do is I lend that money out at 8%, 10%, 12%, whatever deals are presented to me and whatever money I have in the account at the time, I will lend it out to someone like a flipper who needs the money for 6 months, and they're going to buy this property low. They're going to, add value to it, renovate it. They're going to sell it. And so they're going to pay me out in about 6 months' time. And so for me to move my money at 8%, 10%, 12%, whatever that is, annualized, that's better than it sitting in my bank account, my Wells Fargo, my Bank of America at 0.0 whatever, 1%, whatever we're getting from those banks. So that is another way that I like to move my money and kind of diversify my strategies. Now, in those self-directed accounts, those are passive, like long-term dollars. So those are retirement dollars. Those, again, are not dollars that you can eat with today. So I like that strategy. I also, just from a very basic level, which is probably my post as well, is just looking at your bank accounts. And if you have, I don't know, more than a month or two of, let's say, your monthly expenses are $3,000 a month. And let's say for rainy day fund, maybe you want to keep 6,000 in there, 9,000. But if you have more than 2 to 3 months of expenses sitting there, you'd be better off to move the rest of that into a high yield savings account. So some of these accounts, and the market has been shifting, as we know, the rates are dropping. So I have to check on what they are today, but some of these accounts will give you 4%, 5%. Now, those are great places to park your money as you wait for the next investment. The goal is that your money is working for you at all times, right? The goal is not for you to just hoard your money, put it under the mattress, right? Like hiding, because you're going to be losing out to inflation. And you want to make sure that every stage that it's in, whether you're waiting for an investment, it's in that high yield account, whether it's actively moving as a lender, that's getting money, that's getting interest, or whether you're in a 5-year deal where you're trying to double it, you want to make sure your money is working for you. So those are just some of the ways that I'm moving my money. Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, definitely. Exactly what I was talking about. Okay. So I want to dig into a couple of those.
Mm-hmm.
So you're using some of your money, especially in the self-directed IRA, as becoming a private lender, or basically almost like a hard money lender yourself. How do you vet who you're going to lend money to and make sure that they actually are going to give you a return? Because that's like a much more nuanced niche, and you want to make sure you don't just, like, your cousin says he wants to do rehab in his house. You know what I mean? Like, how do you, what's your criteria for vetting somebody and making sure you can lend to the right opportunity?
Okay, guys, don't kill me, but I'm going to have to cut this episode short. This is too juicy, and we need to do this in a part 2. So stay tuned for the next episode that airs, and you can hear the rest of our conversation.
Did you love this episode of Share the Wealth Show? Be sure to connect with Nicole by following her on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook. If you picked up any of the gems that were dropped by today's guest, make sure you not only put them in your bag, but if you know of someone who would benefit from this information, don't keep it to yourself. Share the wealth, and make sure to leave us a rating and review. We'll see you for next week's episode. Subscribe so you'll be notified.